Inravio.com.
Hello again, everybody. This is Joe Larson, and you're watching the 5 On Racing Show. Welcome to another Monday night of race talk. We'll have a lot to talk about. Modified Tour was up at Waterford Speedboat, the New London Waterford Speedboat. I'll never get used to that. It's been the Waterford Speedboat forever. And there was a little milestone we're going to talk about in a minute. A lot of activity at Dover International Speedway in Dover, Delaware. I was there for the weekend. Great show. We'll talk about that as well. A lot of stuff going on in the world in NASCAR. We'll talk about all those things. And we also have a guest calling in, actually, and we'll see some video of him, some live pictures of him, actually. Tyler Williams, singer, songwriter, author, and race car driver. Guy does everything. So we'll be talking with him in the second half of the show. Anyway, this Saturday night, the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour was at the New London Waterford Speedboat. And Ron Silk took down the win there driving for a Long Islander, Danny Watts, who hung up the helmet in the middle of the season last year and put some people in his car. He seemed to have more fun doing it that way, and Ron Silk was in his car this Saturday night and in his car for the season. Ron Silk, former NASCAR Whelen Modified champion, won at the New London Waterford Speedboat. Danny Watts as a tour owner. Congratulations to Danny and the entire crew. Danny from Long Island, and Ronnie Silk up in Connecticut, former driver for the TS Haulers, number 6. Max Zeckham was second, followed by Jimmy Blewett, and Jeff Goodale was 4th. Rob Summers was 5th. Brendan Bach, 6th. Matt Swanson, 7th. Doug Colby, 8th. Donnie Liga, 9th. And Jamie Tomeno rounding out the top 10. We're going to talk about Jamie Tomeno right now. Jamie Tomeno made his 600th start NASCAR Whelen Modified Touring Series. Jamie, 60 years old, out of Howell, New Jersey, got his first start in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour in 1985, the tour's inception, the first year as the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. He got his first win in the tour in 1986, and he was the 1990 NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour champion. He's been racing for 32 years, 600 starts, 3 wins, 91 top 5s, 247 top 10s with 6 poles in that stretch. Lifetime earnings were $373,799, and his average finish in these years, in his 600 starts, is 14th. He only had 3 did not starts in his career. Now, you're talking back in the 80s, 90s, and up to the 2004, 5, where sometimes more cars were going home than starting the event. And Jamie only missed 3 of these, and one of them was right here on Long Island at Riverhead Raceway, where Jamie had the past champions provisional until a Riverhead local said, whoa, wait a minute, I was a past champion, and I should get that spot. Well, because Wayne Anderson at the time was the most recent past champion, he bumped Jamie out of that start. And some controversy arose out of that, and I remember I was the race director then. But the rules stated past champion provisional goes to the most recent past champion. The following year, that rule was changed to say you had to be a participant in the tour currently. Otherwise, Jamie would have only had 2 did not qualifiers. Jamie will turn 60 years old July 3rd. And I'll tell you what, he's one of those guys. He's like a Wade Cole type of guy who's humble beginnings in racing. He's the type of guy, he comes with his family as his crew for the most part. He doesn't stay in hotels and fancy hotels. He doesn't have a fancy hauler. He has an enclosed trailer, which they use on some of the events to sleep in because the money's going to the race car. Jamie Tomeno told me a story one time is how he went and stopped for gas. They went inside and they had something to eat. It was a gas, like a food place as well. And when they came out, they got to the race car, and the race car was gone. The race car was stolen right out of the trailer. And Jamie was all upset. Jamie could be a little excitable at times, wanted to know, with the hauler driver, or the trailer driver, how could you not feel that there was no weight in the back of that trailer? Some Jamie Tomato stories. But Jamie did not just run modifieds on the tour. He also had one start in the Xfinity Series. Back then, it was the Nationwide Series in 1991. He started and finished 41st. And he also ran in the K&N Pro Series East. He had 3 starts there, also in 1991 and 92. And his average finish in the K&N Pro Series East was 22nd. Jamie keeps talking about retiring and giving it all up. I've known Jamie a long time, and he's been saying that for the last few years. Like he said, as long as it's still being fun, he'll still keep doing it. And he seems to be still having fun. He still has a desire. He still has the drive, the heart. He puts out good-looking equipment, and he's one of those guys, when I was with the tour, that I could sit and talk to. I could sit and talk racing. I could learn from him. And him and I have had many conversations over the years, and I have a lot of respect for Jamie as not only as a NASCAR driver, but as a person as well. His family, good people. His boys, both of his boys are working in the Sprint Cup level, Trey and Jamie Jr., and I wish him continued success. And he's one of the guys, he's one of the last holdouts on the modified tour that's been around since the Jerry Cook days, the Ed Cox days, my days, and it's one of the good guys. So congratulations, Jamie, on your 600th start, and I wish you continued success going forward. So all good for Jamie Tomato. Some other things going on in the NASCAR world. Watkins Glen is talking about taking over or running the event that Boston canceled, Watkins Glen in upstate New York. They want to replace that race that was canceled on the Labor Day weekend. The IndyCar schedule has been absent from the Glen since 2010. The recently repaved surface is a heavy favorite to replace the canceled Boston Grand Prix, although a date has not been finalized. Michael Printer, president of the Watkins Glen Speedway, is hopeful a deal will be reached this week. Watkins Glen, a nice road course upstate New York. I'll tell you what, that's a place, I've not only worked there, I've also gone and watched races there. And it's, you pack a picnic, you sit in the hills and you watch the race. Fun time. I worked a couple of series there, Sprint Cup, as well as the Modifieds. A couple of times they ran there. It was a good time, good fun up in Watkins Glen. Looking forward. I'm looking to go up there this year as well and check out the race, but pretty much as a spectator, much as I did this past weekend in Dover, Delaware. So that's all good. So, it's funny. The Indy Racing League is having some troubles, and one of those things, you have a city ink a deal and tell you that they're going to run an event, and then I guess the left hand didn't tell the right, and all of a sudden there was a big uproar, a big hoopla, and they canceled the event. After it was marketed, tickets sold, sponsors and advertisers signed, and boom, just like that, done. Now, I don't know what happens with a deal like that. Hopefully Watkins Glen in upstate New York, not too far from Boston, and considering where some of these places that the IRL runs, I think it'll be a good venue for these Indy cars on the road. And you're not going to do a street course. Like, I know they tried to do it, in New York City. They did it in the Meadowlands many years ago. Running a road course with these cars is an awesome event. Sometimes, at Indy, let's say, that 2.5-mile racetrack, midway through the race, it's just a parade without music, in my opinion. Just a parade without music. And the cars, they don't race until like the last 20 laps. Yeah, the start is pretty crazy. The 3 wide start and 33 cars, 11 rows. But after a while, they settle in line. And in a race that long, in an oval, 200 laps, they just sit there and they sit back and because you need to be in it at the end to win. So what they do is they just hang out, they use some pit strategy, and at the end, that's when everybody goes racing. So that's why when you watch a race like that, I don't believe I'm going to say this, you watch the beginning, you doze off, take a nap, and you wake up with like 20 to go, and you really didn't miss anything, But anyway, That's what's going to happen. And hopefully it gets up there. Watkins, like I said, is a beautiful, beautiful facility. Nice, comfortable, relaxing. You could sit in the grandstands and be on the front stretch, or you could go up in the hills and catch different parts of the track just from where you're sitting up in the hills there. Like I said, you pack a lunch, bring a blanket, you sit there with your friends and family, have a good time. Have a real good time. But anyway, a lot of happenings. A lot of rainouts this weekend. I know our partners up in Bethel Motor Speedway, upstate New York, were rained out. They actually had hail, and it was you can't run up there like that. So hopefully the weather gods are nice to them this upcoming weekend. Weather hurts racetracks, and it hurts in many ways. Because as a promoter, let's say you're a promoter of your own racetrack, and you're sitting there, and you got this big nut you got to pay out to the driver and the teams that race. You got to pay that out. You got to pay your insurance. You got to pay your staff. And if nobody comes to watch, you're in trouble. So a lot of promoters, they start looking at the weather like Sunday, and as it gets closer, you get a little more specific, and then you look and you're like, wow, this threat of rain. Now, that's all that has to happen in the weather. Possible chance for the showers this afternoon. People that had planned to go, look, I'm not going to spend XYZ number of dollars to sit in the rain and then I see racing and I got my money back. Because some promoters over the years have been a little unfair to their fans, where they've got rain coming and they rush, because some of them are like, for argument's sake, 4 events a run, there's no rain checks. So they'll alter their schedule or their lineup and get 4 quick divisions out there to run, I don't know, a couple of heats, whatever, just to get the 4 events in. Oh, sorry, no rain checks, we got to call the show. Now, they didn't pay out any drivers other than the ones that ran, maybe. And their staff, I don't know how they pay their staff, but some are paid weekly, some are paid annually. I don't know, it depends. But they took everybody's money, and there's no racing. So, I don't know how some of these promoters, sleep at night waiting for the weather to come. And right here on Long Island, there was some bad weather forecasted, and they ended up getting their show here after having to rain out their opener at the new Riverhead Raceway. But when you look at something like that, that's a tough call. I don't know what the payoff structure is at all these racetracks. Some I know, some I don't know, but you got to pay that out. And that's where you need your pit area to be filled, because whatever your pit area is bringing in, that should cover your purses. That should cover your whole nut. And then what comes in the front gate, the people who buy tickets to sit in the seats, the people who buy food and drink and souvenirs, that's the gravy. See, you can't count on that, but you can count on your cars coming in. Whether the pit fee is $20, $30, $50, whatever it may be, you have XYZ number of cars and ABC number of people signing in and paying that fee. That's what gets divided up to pay the purses. Now, some tracks pay by check, some paid by cash. Some, you get a check next week when you show up. Some you paid right there, that night. I've seen all kinds of different ways. I've seen racetracks write the check that night and give it. I remember the New London Waterford Speed Bowl under the old ownership, tell a legend car driver who I happen to know who won the feature, and they said, okay, and they gave him a piece of paper. This is a credit. You can get 10 people into the pits next week for free. Because I can't go to my parts guy with that piece of paper and pay my parts bill. And that was one of the demises of the former management of the Waterford Speed Bowl. They had trouble paying their teams. And I know another Whelen modified driver who drove an SK type car there, and he had to chase his money for 2.5 years. So, that's why NASCAR likes to have a rule under their sanctioning rules that the money is supposed to be in the bank 48 hours prior to the event. Whether that always happens, I don't know, but that's the only track I know of that ever had a problem paying people was the old Waterford Speed Bowl. But that's a tough call by a promoter, like I said. Weather. What do you do? What do you do? Jay Slicer, welcome. He said that the local racetrack ran a great show Saturday night, tons of changes, all for the good. And some drivers learned the hard way, no more rough riding. Now, I'll tell you what, you got to do that right from the beginning. You got to do that as a new race director, chief steward, head guy, whatever you want to call the person, the head guy, whatever you want to call that person. he or she, from the get-go, has to say, listen, there's no nonsense. And it's good when you have a person who's kind of an outsider. He doesn't know anybody. He doesn't know anybody. He owes favors. He's not having barbecues on Sunday with this guy. He's not drinking in the bar Friday night with this guy. You know, they got to just look at it. It's just a number. The late Walt Edsel said that to me one time. He goes, listen, in the pit area, I love them all. On the racetrack, they're all just a number. And you got to officiate based on that. You can't say, well, you know, Gagos Paisano runs number 12, or you know, Jack B. Nimble runs number 52. They're a number, and if they mess up, you got to make that call. But it's also important that a head guy who's making those calls is possibly maybe a former racer, because not every incident is on purpose. There are things called accidents, and I had explained this once to a super truck guy here on Long Island who came in ripping and roaring that, you know, he was wrecked on purpose. And the first thing I said to him, listen, nobody comes to the racetrack and I'm going to wreck on purpose tonight. Nobody does that. These cars and trucks are just too expensive. And I explained to him, this is what happened. The law of physics kicked in. There was a hole. It opened. You both went to it. The law of physics says two objects cannot occupy the same exact time, same exact place at the same exact time. Thus, you have a crash. And once I explained that to the guy, you know, the guy was like, well, yeah, but still, my car, yeah, it's wrecked. You're right. You're right. You know? And I'll tell you what, you know, Jay Slice, and he remembers back in my day, that was my rule too. You know, you got a warning. The second time, go bowling. Because you're not going to be, you know, messing up the race. And you got to call those things. And there's certain people that got away with it for years and years and years. And when they didn't finally, whoop, you knew. You know, they knew that, you know, there was, you know, as what did they say? There was a race reporter, and one of my first races, it was in Waterford, and the headline on the story, I forget what paper he wrote for, that he put, there's a new sheriff in town in a NASCAR wheel and modified tour, and on the same night, I parked Ed Flemke Jr. and Donnie Leah. I made him sit on pit road for like, I don't know how many laps. And the fans were going wild. They were cheering, jumping up and down because stuff like that wasn't being called. Now, I came from, you know, a bull ring, and, you know, you made those calls. And Ed Cox, a true Southern gentleman, looked at me when I made that call. I looked at him, and he just said to me, you have your style. As long as you're willing to discuss it with the teams afterwards. I'm okay with that. And nobody came in to discuss it because, and I'll quickly explain what happened. There was a situation where Jamie Tomeno was taken out by Donnie Leah. Donnie Leah took out Jamie Tomeno, and I had him come park and on pit road, and no, it wasn't. It was Ed Flemke. And I had him park, and I held him there. I don't know how many laps. Next thing I know, I have the pit road official. Okay, release him. He smokes his tires down pit road. So I got him for speeding on exit, and I put him for aggressive driving down pit road. Parked him again. I brought him back around. Now Donnie Leah decides he's going to pay him back, so he sends him. I said, you know the drill, guys. Bring it down pit road. You sit there until I'm ready to bring you back out. And he did the same thing. He was angry. He smoked his tire. I brought him back. I never had another problem. You got to do it from the get-go. You got to do it from the get-go. And once you could always come back a little. You could always, all right, well, let's pull back a little bit. But, you know, I learned when I was a soccer official years ago. I went to school to be a soccer official. And the guy said to me, the first call you make it loud and aggressive without hesitation. And people are going to say, whoa, this guy knows what he's doing. So, anyway, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the things that are going on in NASCAR when we come back.
guys, we're Scare No Fear, and we're here with Inravio. If they catch you at a show with one of these bracelets, you will win $100.
That's a lot of money.
So get a bracelet.
Do whatever it takes to get that. Hit them up online.
Village Music Shop of Mastic. 1-800-HEY-DUDE. Your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop, 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Welcome back. Hey, I got an email from I'll say a fan of the show, a fan of racing, and the email starts with, Joe, I know you don't have the to say this on the air, but I have a new acronym for NASCAR. Well, I'm going to prove this guy wrong because I like proving people wrong. And his new acronym, and please understand, I don't agree with this. Inravio doesn't agree with this. Or does 5051 Racing. These beliefs and thoughts are in his own head, and he's allowed to express it. I'm going to prove him wrong. His feeling is NASCAR stands for not a single clue about racing. Anyway, I said it, big guy, and I know you're not in the chat room, but I know you're watching because you didn't think I was going to say that. But anyway, let's say Dover. Kyle Busch's crew chief, Adam Stevens, was visibly absent from the Dover garage this past weekend, along with his front tire changer, Josh Leslie. Both were suspended for one event in violation of the new lug nut rule after last week's race in Kansas. Both are on probation through December 31st, plus there was a $20,000 fine for Stevens. Joe Gibbs Racing put out a statement, and they announced they will not appeal the penalty. What they did was wrong. Let's move forward. Joe Gibbs, a class act. I had the opportunity to talk to Joe Gibbs last year at the Pocono International. And the man takes this very serious. The man is a religious man. They pray before meetings. They pray a lot in the garage area. They pray as a team before the races. And what they did was wrong. And you know what? I'll tell you what, as a crew chief, sometimes you have to push that envelope to get that little bit, just a little bit. Sometimes the envelope just stretches, sometimes it breaks. So when the envelope breaks, so to speak, and the NASCAR people catch you, sometimes it's a slap on the wrist, sometimes it's a talk with, and sometimes it's a suspension and a fine, a $20,000 fine. Now, I'll tell you, I look at this like, fines like this for crew chiefs and whatnot. I'm like, how do they afford to pay that? Well, there was a situation at Michael Waltrip Racing, and the party shall remain nameless because there's a couple of allegations flying back and forth. There's a former crew member from Michael Waltrip Racing, which is now defunct, who was suing Michael Waltrip Racing still for being terminated for no good cause. And it said in the press release that this front tire changer made $160,000 a year. Now, there was some jibber and jabber going in the background. Well, maybe that's why Michael Waltrip Racing is out of business. But whether or not that, if this guy made $160,000 a year as a front tire changer, wow, that's a lot of money. But anyway, there was more to the story. Like there's always, I say, three sides to every story. There's his version, and somewhere in the middle is the truth. So it turns out this person apparently got injured on the job, went out on disability, came back and was fired, because you can't legally fire somebody on disability. And when he came back, he was fired, and that's what he's suing on. That, hey, well, I was replaced, and I'm boom. Well, the other side of the story is when Michael Waltrip Racing closed its doors and sold some of his assets, one of the impact wrench that they use on pit road was missing. These things are quite expensive, and they're made only for the teams. You cannot go to a parts store and buy these guns. You cannot order them online. They were provided by the manufacturer to the teams. This guy had one. How could he have gotten it? And that's why he was terminated. So when you see things like this, people don't like Michael Waltrip. A lot of people say bad stuff about Michael Waltrip. I had the opportunity to have breakfast with Michael Waltrip once in Charlotte, and I got to judge people by the way they treat me, and the guy treated me like gold. And, you know, was he a bad businessman? Yeah, maybe. Was he a mediocre driver? I guess. But you know what? His heart and soul was into it, just like each and every one of us. Each and every one of us, like, that, you know, just wants to do well and just wants to race. And if you guys that don't like Michael Waltrip see that as wrong, then so be it. But here's a guy, he can't race anyway. The parades passed him by. His team went out of business. And now what he's done is he's in the broadcast. But good, bad, whatever, he's doing the best he can with what he has. But anyway, that's it on that. So I believe we have Tyler Williams with us here. Are we good with him? Are we ready? We're going to talk with Tyler. I think he's they're connecting him through to me right now. All right, Tyler, how you doing?
Good. How's it going?
All right, welcome to the 505 on Racing Show.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, Tyler, I understand that you're a multi-talented guy. Now, you've raced sprint cars in the local, and you've sponsored Lucas Oil, K&N Filters, a sprint car owned by Corey Kruzman. Did I say that right?
Corey Kruzman, absolutely.
All right, now, where did you race? Primarily some of the tracks that you raced.
Yeah, so I grew up racing late models in Georgia. So I've run Lanier National Speedway, Gresham Motorsports Park, Fort Eagle Motor Speedway. And to really cut my teeth on asphalt is my background. And then I took about almost a decade off of racing and jumped into some dirt with Corey out in Southern California.
Now, race car driver, I raced in the NASCAR Wheeling All-American Series for a little while back, way back, and you have a book out. It's I Have a Voice. Tell us a little bit about
Absolutely. That. Yeah, so I Have a Voice came about. I was 27 years old at the time, and I'd just gone through a breakup. I'd raced NASCAR previously through college, and life just wasn't ending up how I thought it would. And I had this realization that I wasn't living to my fullest potential, and I wasn't using my voice in the world in a way that was meaningful to me. And so I didn't feel like I was making the biggest impact. And then I started tracing back to my roots as a performer as a kid and realized I'd shut down a whole side of my life of being able to perform and connect and engage with people in a way that was meaningful to me. And so I Have a Voice is that journey of rediscovering my voice as a singer. But really it's about the bigger questions of life. Who am I? You know, why am I here? What am I supposed to do in the world? And when things don't work out and dreams fall through, plans seem to crash into the walls, so to speak, you carve a new path, and it all comes back to how you use your voice. So the book is for people who are struggling with their voice and trying to find a way out.
You know, I fully could relate to that. I wrote a book. I wrote two books, but I wrote a book in 2010 called The View from the Ramp. I fictionalized a story about a NASCAR official on the ramp of a local racetrack officiating a race, and how that experience affected his life. And like you said, you know, I Have a Voice. Man, that could have fit my title of my book. And I'll tell you what, you know, people don't understand what goes on inside a human being. And, you know, you being a country music singer, you know, you could express yourself through your songs, but nobody really understands the meaning of the words. And then you put those words into a book form, and it's like a, wow, hit in the head. Did you get that same feeling that that's what's going on?
Yeah, it's been amazing to see the response with people's experiences, and you wonder sometimes if you're alone and what you're feeling or going through in life. And again, it doesn't have to be something drastic and major, but then you talk to people and you realize that everyone's going through something, and they read the book and they share how meaningful it's been for them, whether it's a super big experience that's really changed someone's life, or just that little encouragement that someone needed to get out and be willing to share their voice.
Right. Now, your racing career, is it on hold? Are you still playing a little bit? What's going on with racing?
Well, we raced all throughout college, and it got to the point we tested a NASCAR E-Series car at Hickory, and it looks like we were going to be going E-Series racing. Well, I wasn't able to bring sponsorship to the table. You're looking at $750,000, $1 million sponsorships, and I just didn't know how to sell at that age. And so it took about 9 years off, and this year we've gone back racing with Corey Cruzman, and he's had longtime partners with Lucas Oil and Cannon Filters that allow him to provide great equipment and bring the cost down for us as racers. And so I've been racing with Corey. We're 5 races into the season, and we're looking to hopefully finish out the rest of the year in the VRA sprint cars down at Ventura Raceway, and we'll run some USAC West Coast as well throughout the season.
Now, and I'm going to say this, you're not the atypical race car driver. I'm looking at your stuff the other day. I'm going through, I'm like, this guy's like a Renaissance man. You're a motivational speaker, you're a country musician, and you wrote a book, and you're racing. And how do you juggle the time? How do you make it all fit?
Well, it fits for me in the sense that I look back as a kid and making that dream, that claim that I wanted to be an entertainer. And whether it's racing cars on the track, putting on the greatest show we can for the fans, interacting with them in the pits after the race, whether it's on stage, singing to fans as well, putting on a show. It's all about giving people that moment of freedom to just have a fun night that's stress-free and connect with them in a way that's meaningful. And juggling, part of it's just having a great team. Corey Cruzman Motorsports is an amazing team, and they allow me to show up and really focus on racing the car. And then back home here in Atlanta, I have a great team as well that help, whether it's getting my media and visual media stuff going, or getting PR, my team up in the Northeast, connecting and getting the word out about the book. I Have a Voice, my EP, Believe Again, and just having great people around that support the mission that I'm on. And ultimately, no matter what I do, whether it's singing country music, racing cars, speaking to corporate groups or colleges, universities, the core mission for me is to help activate the voices and ideas of people and organizations. And when we do that, when I'm allowed to go out and share that with people, it's all about encouraging them to live their voice fully. And when they do that, it engages their personal life in a way that they show up for their friends and their family at a bigger level, and they show up at work excited and engaged, and it's more productivity, more engagement, more life, and it's just a lot more fun.
And you hit the nail right in the head, and it's got to be fun. And I'll tell you, I learned the hard way that, if you're doing things that are fun, it's not work, it's fun. And it took me a lot of years to know it. I'm 58 years old, and it took me a long time to learn that. Sometimes you take things a little bit too serious, and you have to look at it as fun, and it should all fall into place. Whether you're racing a car, writing a book, playing music. I was a drummer. I played top 40 music for years, up until about 20 years ago. And people used to say, why don't you focus on one thing? And I said, no, I'm having fun. And from the sounds of it, you are having fun. And you're not focused on one single dimension here. You're doing what's making you feel good. Share that.
Without a doubt. And like I said, it all falls under the umbrella of entertainment to me. So my brain is able to handle the process of going through and switching. Friday night I was in Macon, Georgia, doing a TV performance, and then I flew out to Los Angeles Saturday morning. We raced in Ventura Saturday night. I flew home Sunday, got home late, and then we had another TV performance today in South Georgia. And it works for me. It's not such a transition to go out and do those things, because it's just part of my nature to connect and engage with people and put on the best show that I can.
Mm-hmm. And I, it's funny. I worked in Atlanta back in the mid-'90s, and I was also racing, and I was flying back to Long Island just to go racing, and flying back to work on Sunday. And people used to say, why do you do that? I said, because I love it. Well, there's tracks there you can race it. Yeah, but Long Island, that was my home track. That's what my family and friends was. And, you know, it's funny the parallels that I'm seeing here just talking to you, you know. You don't realize that when you read a bio, but just listen to you talk. You're a motivational guy, man, I'll tell you. It's all working for you. Now, if you had life to do all over, if they flipped a switch and said, Tyler, you could go back to this point, do different, what would you do different, if anything?
The number one thing I would do is take more risk, and not crazy daredevil risk, but just putting myself out there more. You know, when I look at that one bad performance, you know, previous years I performed in front of 4,000 people, no problem. And then one bad performance at a house party with maybe a dozen people was what shut my voice down. And instead of getting back up and going and riding again and believing that I have what it takes, I shut that down. And so just seeing how that impacted almost a decade of my life, you know, I still was hanging out with people, I had friends. I didn't put myself in a corner and never interact with people. But I look at, if I would have taken more risk to share my voice with people, not just as a singer, but just communicating in general as an introvert, which may be hard to believe to some people.
Right.
You know, being able to take more risk allows you the freedom to say, hey, you know what, maybe I did take a risk and I failed, but I can learn from it, and then I can move forward. And with those failures, those really help us become better and refine the practice of whatever we're doing, whether it's music, you know, one bad performance. And maybe it's just a little small thing that nobody else notices, but you do. Well, you move forward from it. So just taking bigger risks to put myself out there, because you only become greater through your failures.
One of the things that my dad always instilled in me is, he says, son, don't look back and say shoulda, woulda, coulda. Go do it. And it looks like
Absolutely.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, people ask me the same thing. Well, how can you do all this, or why do you do all this? Why don't you just get a regular job? And the truth is, I don't feel like I'm living my best life if I'm not chasing the dreams and things that are in my gut. I just feel that it's a calling in life to go after big dreams. And whether I hit a big stage or not, you know, friends keep reminding me, hey, you're doing it. You know, you're singing country music and you're racing cars and you're changing lives in the process. So it's become really meaningful to me.
Where can people get your book?
You can find the book on Amazon.com. Search Tyler Williams, I Have a Voice. And the music is on iTunes, the Believe Again EP. You can also stream it on Spotify if you're on Spotify. So check it out.
We will, and I have a lot of people that watch our show all over the country, and these shows are archived and they're YouTubed, and the people who missed it tonight will get to see it. All they got to do is click on it and look at it. And Tyler, I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us tonight. And it's always great to have a great guest like you. And this is the first time we did a Skype thing like this, so it's usually they come down and call up. So, but I thank you.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Wishing you continued success. Tyler Williams, motivational speaker, race car driver, country music performer, and author of the book, I Have a Voice, which you can find at Amazon.com. Thanks, Tyler. And we're going to take a break, and we come back, we're going to talk about Dover and the ongoings of what happened there and how Jimmy Johnson took out half the field when we come back.
Inravio.com wants you. Inravio provides the best in TV, film, post-production, and so much more. And we're growing. Right now, we're looking for a team of pros that can join us. So what are you waiting for? We need show hosts, production crew, marketing gurus, sales experts, audio engineers, lighting, visual effects, and camera crews. We want you. Go to Inravio.com/join the team.
Hey, I'm Raul Panther.
And I'm Commander B. Hawkins.
And I'm Rich Weller. We're some of the proto men. If we see you without this bracelet, you get punched in the But if you have this bracelet from Inravio.com, you can win $100.
Put one of these on, or else.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, Inravio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is Inravio.com. For over 60 years, Hanson Carpet has put the customer first, providing only the finest quality products and service. And Hanson Carpet is so much more than just carpet. We also carry a wide selection of window blinds and shades, and our licensed and insured technicians can service any of your flooring or window covering needs. Browse our huge selection of laminate, carpet, linoleum, vinyl, and tile. Stop by our showroom today or visit HansonCarpet.com. No matter what your project, Hanson Carpet has got you covered.
Hey, this is Chris West Jake, and if Inravio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Again, Tyler Williams, I want to thank him again for taking time out of his busy schedule just from talking to him. I was getting tired with all this stuff he does. Not tired that he was saying it, just I don't know how he does it. You know, write a book, race, sing songs, perform, write, and be a motivational speaker. It's awesome. It's awesome. Anyway, I want to give an update. Project Modified that was started a year ago. Didn't happen last year, wasn't finished. The scheduled driver moved on to a different team because he'd rather race regular as opposed to nostalgia. So at an Essential Ice of Firehouse, the CI Hobos, Ducky Miller has stripped the car and is rebuilding it, and we plan to run that car sometime in July. So that's going to be exciting. We'll give you updates as we come along with that, but it's all good. It's all good. And while I'm on Project Modified, I want to take this opportunity. We have that new opening, I'm sure many of you saw. And I want to thank some of the footage in that opening was provided by Kevin Basic, Long Island Need for Speed, and I want to thank him for that as well, and for my staff for putting that new opening together. We had that other opening on for such a long time, and it was sometimes you have to change things. So we changed it, and I hope everybody likes it. Anyway, Camper World Truck Series was at Dover. Now, it was raining. I was getting there just in time to catch it, and I said, you know what, I'm not going to sit in the rain and watch the truck race. So I didn't go. And it was not hard to convince the group I was with to do the same thing. But anyway, Matt Crafton was the winner with Daniel Suarez second. Christopher Bell was third. Johnny Sauter was fourth. Cole Custer was fifth, followed by Spencer Gallagher in sixth with Tyler Reddick seventh. Ryan Truex was eighth. Daniel Hemrick, an old modified driver, young modified driver, I should say, was ninth. And Kaz Gorilla was 10th. Good race for the trucks at Dover. And I'll tell you what, that's a fast place. But anyway, the Xfinity Series, Eric Jones was the winner there, followed by Darrell Wallace Jr., also known as Bubba. Alex Bowman was third. Justin Allgaier fourth. Ty Dillon fifth. Elliott Sadler sixth. Joey Logano seventh. Matt Tifft eighth. And Daniel Suarez ninth. And Brendan Poole rounded out the top 10. I had the opportunity to chat briefly with the Richard Petty Motorsports drivers, Eric Almirola and Scott Dixon. And I'll tell you what, these guys are just funny as heck. I'll tell you, because their big sponsor for the event was Smithfield Foods, and they had a rib eating contest that was officiated by the king himself, Richard Petty, with Eric Almirola as the MC. And if you want to laugh watching these guys eat ribs, it was the funniest thing. And had the opportunity later on in the morning to talk with Scott Dixon. And, these guys, they want to get in this All-Star event. So I told them I would do my best to make that happen. And to get into the All-Star event, you had to win, be a champion, past champion, all that. And they haven't done it. That I didn't. So fans could be voted in. Fans could vote in their favorite driver. So if you think about it, do me a favor. Do me a favor and vote for them. Vote for them. All right? And I told them I would put that out there. And yeah, there was a question, why did they take WJ out of the opening? And we're going to get him back into that. I didn't preview that at all, and I appreciate the efforts my staff does to do that. And I guess they didn't realize how important that was, not only to me, but to our fans too. But we'll be able to, there's a picture that him and I together that I think we could get in there for the time. So we will work on it this week. And my apologies to anybody that might have upset, because as I said in the anniversary show, just like with Derek Jeter, with Bob Shepard, who announced for the Yankees for 50 years, Derek Jeter had it in his contract that Bob Shepard would always announce him when he came to bat, no matter what, at home games. And WJ, a good friend of mine, I miss him terribly. And not seeing him be the first guy on the chat saying, Joe, where are you? You're late again. You need to be on time. And then those little talks on Tuesday morning, critiquing what we did. So we will get that back up. But yeah, 22 figure. I'll tell you what. I don't want to go into too many of the details, but I was supposed to be in the garage, and my credentials got canceled 3 days before the event. And I'm not thinking they like me there. So I just kept a low profile. I got a call, and they said, listen, no, they changed their mind. You can't be in the garage. And I was like, oh, okay. So, I went with a group of people, I went with people, and there were about 100,000 people in the seats. So, and a lot of people speaking in the seats, a lot of people say, wow, it was empty. But just for fun and games, I think Friday night or Saturday, I went online to see what availability there were for tickets. Now, I've had tickets for a long time. And I went to see what availability is there. And I looked, and there was like a seat here, 2 there, a bunch on the bottom. And then you get there, and the race is going green, and you're looking at all the empty seats. But driving to the track from the hotel, the 2 main highways that I took, there were, I'm going to say on every corner, people standing there with fist loads of tickets trying to sell them. And I'm saying to myself, this is what happens. These guys and gals, they buy a ton of tickets, hoping they can get rid of them. Even StubHub had a ton of tickets available, but those tickets already paid for. Those seats, those empty seats, for the most part, are already paid for. And the people don't show up. Scalpers can't get them all sold and all that kind of good stuff. So that's what happens when you see, in some instances, a lot of empty seats. The seats that have the banners over them, yeah, those seats weren't sold. And Clay Campbell, president of Martinsville Speedway, told me that sometimes they make more money from those banners than what the revenue they'd get from the people sitting in the seats. So I believe that's what goes on when you see a lot of empty seats, is these scalpers. It's not like it was years ago. When I went to Daytona for I guess it was the 50th race, you wanted a ticket, you were paying 5 times face value. For some reason, it's not the same. So they're giving these tickets, they're selling these tickets for less than face value. They couldn't give them away. There were just too many out there, but they were already paid for. So, I don't know. It's just one of those things. But it was a fun weekend. Had a great time. Had some good food, good fun, and it's all good. And it's funny and it's hard. And I'm going to say that I want to thank WJ for making me a race fan again. To go watch races, and he debated with me once way back a few years ago. Debated with me, come to the races, come to the races, come to the races, and I was like, nah, I'm not. If I'm not driving or officiating, I have no interest in it at all. And he got me going. He got me, like I've said this a million times, Mahoning Valley. He got me going to Mountain, which is now Evergreen Speedway again. Even to my local track, Riverhead, he got me to start going. And people that in our crowd that went would look at me the way I watched the races, and it was like all serious, it was all business. I was like, watch your stuff, who's bumping and grinding who, and then somebody was like, don't you smile? Aren't you enjoying this? And I was just into it, And it's tough. It's only recently I've been able to view a race as a fan, so to speak. And nobody was any more disappointed than I was. And there's no secret, I'm a Richard Petty fan. And no matter who drives the Richard Petty, I got to root for those people. I mean, my worst enemy, people that are dead to me, could drive for Richard Petty. They'd be like a rebirth, and I'd root for them. And Eric Almirola was a couple of laps down. He got himself back on the lead lap, thanks in part to the lucky dog, the free pass. And he was moving, and he was going, and he got caught up in that Jimmy Johnson, the shifter locked up, and the whole outside line just wrecked in half the field. But anyway, Dover. Matt Kenseth was the winner with Kyle Larson second. We had Chase Elliott third, Casey Kane fourth, Kurt Busch was fifth, Brad Keselowski sixth, Denny Hamlin seventh, Ryan Blaney was eighth, Martin Truex Jr. ninth, and Trevor Bayne rounded out the top 10. Kevin Harvick, who had the pole, finished 15th. A little brief on the Jimmy Johnson thing. One of the late restarts coming up, I guess it was maybe 35, 40 laps to go. Cars took off, and that place is fast. That is a fast place. And his tranny locked in gear. He banged through the gear, and it just locked in gear. And everybody's, flat-footing it through there, and bang, 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 and it was just a big pileup. There was no time for any spotter to say wreck. And 16 cars were involved, I believe, and some of them were destroyed. Some of those race cars were destroyed. And I felt bad for A.J. Allmendinger because I mean, A.J. Allmendinger, wow. That's the old driver, Eric Almirola, because the guy was coming. I'm not saying he would have won the race, don't get me wrong, but I'll tell you what, he was going to get a top 10 that day, and he, at one point, I had my clock on him, and he was one of the fastest cars on the racetrack. And we'll see what happens. But I think there's wins this year in Richard Petty Motorsports, and I think there's going to be, times are changing over down at Petty. Anyway, the next event will be the All-Star Race at Charlotte, and that'll be this upcoming weekend. And then they'll be in Charlotte again for the World 600 at the same weekend as the Indianapolis 500. And just to let everybody know, there will not be a show Memorial Day. It is a day that I believe that everybody should be with their families, remembering those who are no longer with us, and enjoying that weekend with your family and friends. And so there will be no show Memorial Day. We want everybody to be with their families and enjoying it. And I'm not thinking anybody, after being at a barbecue all day and slamming down some beers and drinking some Jamesons, is going to want to turn their computer on and listen to Joe babble about race cars. So but we'll talk about that next week. All righty. It's almost time to wrap up. So I want to take this opportunity again to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank Tyler Williams for Skyping in with us and having a good talk. And again, his book is available at Amazon.com, and it can be, the name of that book is I Have a Voice. Check it out. It sounds like it's a good one. So again, I want to thank everybody for coming in, and we'll work on that change with WJ, and I'm with you on that one. And wherever your endeavors are going to take you this weekend, please be safe. Please be careful. Tell somebody you love them. Give them a hug. God bless you all, and we'll see you next week, if not sooner. Have a good night.
Inravio.com.